It's January 19th, and during the early morning hours, we'd set out to chase the St. Louis to Tulsa Manifest, STLTOL. We would start the day off at the train's origin at the west end of BNSF's Lindenwood yard, where the River Sub and Cuba Sub split off from one another. Today, we'd primarily stay on the Cuba Subdivision, as which is the route that STLTOL takes. Our goal is to chase him to Valley Park in Pacific, Missouri. We'd be immediately greeted by QSPM STL, but it wouldn't be moving anytime soon as there would not be enough room in the yard. Looking to the east, we would see the yard job putting together trains as usual. This would keep us company as there would still be a little bit of waiting. At 6:30 on the dot, our train would begin to make its way out of the yard just as the sun begins to rise. We wouldn't stay very long since we're pretty far from the highway. Even with the roads slowing us down, it wouldn't be long before we caught up, as the track speed is very low on this portion of the line. As expected, Main 1 would be illuminated with a high green. At milepost 18, Valley Park is where the double track segment ends, as the rest of the line will remain single track. About 10 minutes after arrival, the train would begin hitting crossings to the east of us, signaling it was close. We next find ourselves at the first siding on the subdivision, Doiser, at milepost 32. Oddly enough, we'd be welcomed by an approach, so the train wouldn't be going very fast through here. We'd only have a few minutes here before the headlights peeked over the hills. This train was experiencing signaling issues at the other end of the siding, explaining the approach. It eventually came to a stop, giving us just enough time to get ahead of it once again at Jefferson Street. We decided to head into downtown Pacific to see what was going on at North Olive Street. This crossing had been blocked for over 3 hours by now. We headed just around the curve to the east to catch Amtrak. The sun wasn't in our favor whatsoever, but the S-curve still made for a nice shot. Note the Charger with the ALC 42 nose. After passing the time getting breakfast, we would head back since MASNP was soon to be aligned. We would set up in the same spot since it offers some great lighting toward the west, perfect for this train since it has a Southern Pacific as a rear DPU. At 10:48 a.m., it would set off the detector in Eureka and would poke its nose around the curve shortly after. Just across the road, we watch as the Silica plant prepares for LSE 59's arrival. This plant has been open since the early 1900s and was essential for constructing the famous Route 66. 10 minutes after MASNP passed, LSE 59 would creep around the bend. This train would proceed to drop off its cut of hoppers on the spur track. The light power would then be ran back around on the main line. Once it cleared the switch, it would begin to back into the industry. This crossing still has to be flagged since there are no crossing gates to warn drivers coming around the curve. It wouldn't be for another 20 minutes before the train would pull back out of the industry with a much larger train this time. This would be our last catch of the morning, as I would soon have to work. We would see the train one last time at Doiser once again. I hope you all enjoyed this video as much as I did, and stay tuned as I have much more to come.